Most people think retirement preparation is only financial. Save enough money, invest well, and then you're ready. But after working with thousands of retirees, the ones who struggle most in retirement are not always the ones with the least amount of money. They're often the ones who retire into isolation, got no structure, and the shock of going from a monthly salary to living from their investments is really, really hard for them. So in this video, I want to share 5 things that you can do before you retire that will make your retirement easier. So let's start with the one most people ignore until it's too late. Start by strengthening your relationships before you retire. So what do I actually mean by that? Well, you need to start strengthening your relationships outside of work. In work, you've got these automatic friendships. There's lunch with colleagues, chats around the office, shared routines, and messages during the week. Then retirement happens and those touch points disappear almost overnight. And if your social life is mostly work-based, retirement can feel strangely quiet. In a previous video, I mentioned my nan who'd stayed working at Boots much longer than she needed to because she was scared about losing her friendships at work. It's a scary thought for people who are on their own, but there is an action you can take to avoid this and ensure that it doesn't happen to you. Firstly, pick 3 people you genuinely want in your life 5 years from now. Maybe it's a colleague you really like spending time with and get on super well with. A friend you just haven't kept in touch with and that dreaded drift has crept into place. Or a family member you miss and wish you could spend more time with. Next, schedule in a recurring time with them. That could be a monthly lunch, a weekly walk, or a standing coffee. When you retire, you're not just leaving work. You're also leaving a built-in community that you've been part of for years and years. Some people will be super happy about that, but most of us, we're going to really miss the people we work with. So it's important to build a new community early on in retirement. And it's been proven that people with meaningful relationships live longer than those that do not. So connections, friendship, and family are super important. Do not lose these connections because you've stopped working. The next thing we'll look at is my favorite topic, planning, but it might not be the planning you think I'm going to talk about. So point number 2 is make a life plan, not just a financial plan. The second thing to do before you retire is to build a plan, not just a financial plan, but a life plan. This might sound like a bucket list, but it's not. It's not a case of, I want to travel more, I want to spend more time watching Netflix. This is a real plan for your time and for you. Retirement is a huge shift. We know this. You go from having a structure imposed on you to having complete freedom, nowhere to be, and a calendar that is blank for weeks and sometimes months on end. Which sounds amazing, but without structure, your new freedom is in danger of turning into drift, which is what we don't want, as we discussed in our previous videos. So here is a simple way to do it. Create 3 life buckets, like lifeboats. The first one can be people, and this is who you spend time with. The second one is projects, and this is what you want to build, what you want to learn, what you want to contribute to. And the third one is your body. This is about how you will protect your health and your energy in retirement. Now that we have our buckets, write 1 or 2 commitments for each bucket. And it doesn't have to be anything big or insanely difficult, like 6-pack abs in retirement. That's probably going to be a bit tough for some of us. But for the people bucket, it could be lunch on a Friday with friends. For your projects bucket, it could be doing something like a cooking class or volunteering, something you actually will really, really enjoy. For your body bucket, it might be joining a walking group or doing yoga every week or playing golf, just something involving a tiny bit of movement. The point is to be intentional with it, not to be spontaneous every week. That's where you're going to come a cropper if you do it like that. But also not just busy for the sake of it too, but to do things that actually mean something to you. Now we know why you should have a life plan. Next, we'll look at testing your financial plan. So number 3 is all about practicing living on your retirement income before you actually retire. The third thing to do is a stress test. What we see from a lot of retirees is that money feels different when it's not coming from their paycheck. It's more of an emotional thing when you're dipping into your savings. Think about it. We've been programmed to never touch our retirement pots or our savings in case of an emergency. And it's hardwired into us that it is a bad thing when these things go down. So when you're working, a spending mistake or something that costs us doesn't feel that bad. Maybe you splurged 100 quid on drinks on a Friday night after a nice meal, but it's all right. You know, you'll make it back next month. In retirement, you're not living off a wage. Your income is not as steady as it once was, and there is no overtime or bonus that can be maybe used to boost things back up if you need it. You're living off a plan, and you don't have the same flexibility to spend without limits, and then know there'll be plenty of opportunities to make it back later. So here is a good action plan. For the next 60 to 90 days, practice living on your expected retirement spending level just as a trial. Keep your income the same, but only spend what you would spend in retirement and sweep the rest into a separate account. Two things are going to happen here. First is you will learn what feels tight and what feels easy. And the second is you will build confidence that the plan is real and not just a theory. There is nothing more comforting than knowing you've done something before you actually have to do it, and had lots of test runs with it and it actually works. Then actually implementing it and doing it. This is why in the army they make you practice drills all the time. Not that I've been in the army, but so I've been told. So in an emergency, you just react and know what and expect to do because it's subconscious. This is one of the fastest ways to reduce anxiety before retirement, because you're not guessing. You actually have proof that it works and you can live like this. So do not leave things to chance and just be theoretical. Make sure you test. All right, now that we've learned about stress testing, this next one is a little boring, but it's very, very important. So number 4, clean up the big financial admin while you are still employed. It's important to do the financial admin while you still have employment income, because once you stop working, some things are going to become much, much harder to do. And here are the big ones to think about. And the first one is pretty obvious. It's around any mortgages or borrowing that you have. If you need to refinance, change terms, or lock in a specific rate, now is the time to do it before you retire. It is usually much easier to do that while you have an employment income than when you don't. You do not want to be figuring out borrowing options after you've already stepped away from work. The next one is around any other big predictable expenses you've got coming up. So start by looking 5 to 10 years ahead. And, you know, the things that we'll look at here are like car replacement, major home maintenance, big appliances, basically anything you know is coming down the track. And don't fool yourself either. Be honest with yourself. It's difficult, but you know what is coming up. We're not saying to go and buy everything now, okay? But it is better to have these things sorted to avoid being forced into expensive decisions because you did not plan for something predictable. Retirement works best when surprises are kept to a minimum and are smaller, not like re-roofing your whole bloody house. Now that we've sorted out finance admin, next, let's look at what I would argue is the most important thing to get right for your retirement. So number 5, get your health routines in place before you retire. Health is the multiplier in retirement. So getting your health routines right is so important to having an enjoyable retirement. And as I've said before, it's no good having the money to travel the world if you don't have the legs to climb the stairs. More time is only going to be useful if you have the energy to use it. And we see a lot of people assume they will sort it out once they retire. But routines are harder to build when you're already in a big transition. There's so much going on. So build them now and have a simple baseline. It might be a sleep routine you protect, movement that you know that you can sustain in retirement, and strength work if you're able. And something for mental health like journaling, walking, time outside, anything consistently done regularly that you enjoy and like doing. It doesn't need to be perfect. We just want to sustain momentum with this. And the best time to build the habit is before you actually need it. It is now. So if your retirement is coming up, focus on these 5 things. Number 1, strengthening your relationships. Number 2, build a life plan and not just a money plan. Number 3, practice living on your retirement spending level. Number 4, clean up any of those big financial admin decisions while you're still employed. And number 5, and most importantly, locking in health routines before the transition. Retirement goes well when these 3 things are true. You have good people around you, you have a purpose, and you have a plan. If you want more retirement planning videos like this, please subscribe and like this video. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much for watching.